In this country, there was a female knight known as the strongest. No matter how tough the opponent was, she never lost a single fight. People used to say she must be incredibly strong. But did you hear? That knight is quitting the order. At the Austrian knight's headquarters, we learned the situation. She has been suspended from the order for a while and has nowhere to go. In the meantime, two girls approach the main character. So why me, he asks. One of them is standing with another woman who says, Carlo, I have a favor to ask. I want you to look after her for a bit. Carlo, the main character, couldn't understand anything. The girl continues, specifically, I want you to live together and teach her what happiness feels like. This is the journey of our main character, who spoils the strongest knight in the capital. At the main character's estate, he tells her, this used to be my grandfather's place, but I'm the only one living here right now. She looks at him with doubtful eyes. As he opens the door, he says, I tried to get a room ready for you. Inside is a shining room filled with all kinds of luxurious items and goodies. There is a bunny plush on the bed. She picks it up and places it on the couch. As she sits on the bed, she says, I appreciate it. The main character remembers how his little sister advised him to put the bunny on the bed, saying girls love stuffed animals. Man, giving a stuffed animal to a knight, what a bad call, sister. He smiles at her and says, if you need anything else, just let me know. I'll go get it right now. She replies, I don't need anything. As long as I have a place to sleep, I'm fine. Anything else is unnecessary. The main character feels a little uneasy about this. About a year later, we see her blushing while cuddling soft toys. The main character calls her name. Alba, did you get even more of those? She looks at him and tries to hide them, saying, knock first. He replies, I did. Surprisingly, the strongest knight in the capital has settled in quite well. A year ago, when she first came, the main character used to greet her with welcome home. She would stare at him sternly. He got worried looking at her armor. She told him it was basically her casual wear and that he shouldn't worry. He thought to himself that maybe she didn't own normal clothes. He tried to help, saying, hey, want to go look at some clothing together sometime? She outright rejected him. But the main character wasn't about to give up. He offered, if you want, I could tie your hair back for you. She pushed his hand away and said with a disgusted look, don't touch me. He thought, crap, I just reacted out of habit from taking care of my sister. He apologized. Sorry, that was sudden. She replied, I am grateful to you, but don't fuss over me so much, and went inside the manor. He thought to himself, she definitely hates me. Is living together really going to work out like this? A year later, she comes towards him while he's working and sits right beside him. He asks, what's up? She says, my hair. He doesn't understand at first. She grabs his shirt, pulling him closer, and says, for a change, I want you to do it. She wanted him to tie her hair. Living together is going great for them. About a year ago, one day the main character looked at her with worry. What happened? That's an injury. She was covered in wounds. She said, oh this? I broke up a fight. I'm a bit rusty, so I messed up a little. He told her, we need to get that treated right now. She replied, I don't want it. If I leave it alone, it will heal. He tried to explain that's not how it works, but she said, I'm taking a bath first, blushing a little as she added, just leave me be. That was a year ago, but now things are different. He is teaching her how to chop vegetables. All right, go chop the vegetables. She says, understood. He thinks it's rare for her to want to help with cooking. Her hands are shaking as she holds the knife for the first time. Not one meant for killing, but for cooking. She couldn't do it properly. He asks, are you okay? She accidentally cuts herself, a tiny cut on her hand, and starts bleeding. He rushes over with a handkerchief, saying, yeah, let me see. This is what she has become, a cute, normal girl, but still the strongest in the kingdom. We see her calling Carlo from behind. He is stunned. She asks, where are you going? He is dressed up perfectly. He sighs, oh, just a ball. It's a work thing. She says with a bit of anger, will there be women there? He replies, well, it's a ball, so of course. I'm not really feeling it either. She keeps staring into his soul. He gets an idea and asks her to come with him, but she says, no. Why would I even want you to ask that? He says, fair enough. I bet you'd look great in a dress, though. Well, I'm heading out. As he leaves, she suddenly approaches him from behind and says, hey, Don't let your eyes wander. He replies while holding her hands. I'll be back soon. A year ago, at night, he heard some noise. She was training. He asked what she was doing. She said, "Oh, just my morning training." But it was 3 a.m. For him, it was the middle of the night. He said, "You aren't a knight anymore. You could sleep in a little." She rejected the idea, saying, "No, I must always remain strong." He wondered what it would take to get her to actually rest. The present day changes everything. At 8 in the morning, she is buried in fluffy, cuddly stuff, waking up like a princess. She says, "Something smells amazing." She comes downstairs. He says, "Morning, Alba. Breakfast is almost ready." She yawns loudly, drooling a bit from the smell of food. He says she still looks pretty sleepy. A year ago, he presented her with a cake he baked, as his sister advised him that girls love sweets. He told her to help herself. She just stared at it blankly. He asked, "Not a fan of sweets?" She got up and said, "Knights have no need for treats. You should eat it yourself." I appreciate the gesture, but I will pass. But in the present day, we see her devouring that same cake like it's her last meal. He says, "Oh, that's the cake I made yesterday." She gets startled. He smiles, "Glad I made a whole one." "It's okay." She says, "I saved some for you too." He replies, "You can have the whole thing." She looks at him wide-eyed. "Oh, really?" A year back, while walking, he asked her, "Want to go for a walk? There's a path with beautiful mimosas." She came along, but the pressure was intense. As a knight, she radiated bloodlust, scaring everyone around. He thought she looked beautiful and dignified. She suddenly said, "Are you looking for an opening to attack?" He apologized and stepped behind her. In the present, they walk together peacefully. He says, "Spring is finally here." She replies, "Yeah," looking a little happy. He notices she's brightening up compared to before. He stares, then apologizes. She says, "You're staring. Unfortunately for you, I don't leave openings." A year ago, while shopping, people stared at them. A man bumped into him and left without apologizing. Alba noticed and said, "Watch out, he's dangerous," then instantly knocked him down with one punch. It turned out the man had stolen his wallet. He thanked her, but said, "Knocking a man out in public, you overdid it." She said it wasn't a big deal. He told her she wasn't acting like a knight right now. She felt a bit bad, but he added, "Anyway, thanks. You looked really cool." She thought, scolding me and then praising me. You're a weird guy. A year later, during another shopping trip, a thief tries to grab their stuff. Alba stops him, saying, "Give it back. I'll let you go." Her aura alone scares the thief away. The main character apologizes. "Sorry, I messed up again." She says, "I told you not to let your guard down." He smiles, "Thanks. You're amazing, Alba." She replies blankly, "Well, obviously." Even when facing strong opponents, she always dominated. And now, that same night is enjoying tea time, eating muffins made by the main character. He says, "There are still more." She replies, "I'm still not used to this." He says, "I think you'll fit in pretty well. Want some more tea?" It's important to take breaks. As he pours tea, the kettle slips. Alba instantly catches it, saying, "Is this part of the break as well?" He worries, "Are you okay? That was hot." She says, "You're overreacting." He insists, "No, your hands are important, especially for you." She thinks to herself, this is the first time anyone has been worried about her like that. About a year ago, when she came for the first time, the main character handed her the dinner, saying, "I'll leave it right here." He then walked out of the room. She looked at him with a disdainful expression, doubt lingering in her mind as he closed the door behind him. She was covered in sweat and had no idea what he was doing. It had been a week since Alba moved in, and Carlo was at his wit's end. He had always lived a quiet, solitary life. Naturally, he had never really had a reason to get close to women. But as we already know, he had been given the task of looking after her. There was just one exception, that person who had dumped Alba on him, Night Order Operations Assistant Louise. She was his senpai back in school. Ever since those days, she had been challenging him to sparring matches, giving him stray cats, saying she couldn't keep them at her place, and constantly picking on him. He thought she had calmed down after becoming an assistant at such a prestigious place, but after she told him to live together with Alba and show her what it's like to be happy, his thoughts became quite vigorous and meditative. He got up, closed his book, and thought, actually, I'm going to go talk to her face to face. I need to tell her straight up that I can't handle this. Well, it looks like things didn't go as planned. When he told her, she replied, the answer is no. I was wondering why you showed up so suddenly. It's only been a week, hasn't it? Carlo tried to say. Well, she replied. What could you possibly know after just a few days? This is way over my head, Carlo said. Besides, I haven't even heard the whole story yet. Why should I trust her? Silence filled the room. Well, she told Carlo. Alba is a top-tier warrior amongst the knights, but she's completely lacking in everything else. That girl only knows how to fight. Meanwhile, while this conversation was taking place, back at the main character's residence, Alba took her duty very seriously. Since Carlo had just headed out for a bit, she decided she would need to be on lookout. She took that quite literally, wearing her full armor and standing right outside the house with a spear in her hands. A nervous young mailman approached, saying, I have a letter for the owner of this house. As he came closer, Alba looked at him as if he were an assailant. The boy quickly said, I am just the mailman, and handed her the letter. The scene shifts back to Carlo, who was still chatting with his senpai. He thought it was no use. Ever since then, she had just been dodging everything he said. He told her, I seriously am struggling here. Someone as beautiful as her. I just can't live with her. This was a bit of a shocker for his senpai. She burst into laughter, or rather, mockery. Laughing, Carlo asked her, What's so funny? She replied, Calling Alba beautiful? You are the first person to have ever said that. He couldn't understand her words. In his perspective, she was a tender young girl. She asked him, What do you think the other nobles call her? Well, a savage woman. Damaged goods, she explained. Just because she's a female knight, she receives nothing but prejudice. Even if she swings her sword for the people, it's a world where no one even says thank you. That's why being treated like a human being is exactly what Alba is missing. And I think you are the kind of guy who can give her that. That is why I placed her with you. As night fell, Carlo was returning to the mansion, thinking, she totally played me. With a gift in hand, he headed home to Alba. I'm so pathetic. Why am I always like this? You're back, said a voice. It was Alba. He asked, Why are you standing in front of the house in full armor? She replied, Guarding the perimeter. And I have a letter for you. Carlo saw that it was a letter from her sister. He looked at her and said, You took it for me? Thank you so much. Alba didn't know how to respond and just said, Yeah. Seeing him still standing there, she added, Well, I have delivered it safely and shall now resume my guard duties. He replied, No, it's fine. It's fine. He took a deep breath and said, Let's eat dinner. She tried to say, No, I should really, but he cut her off. Just come inside. The next morning, while still yawning, he thought to himself, What should I make for breakfast? He suddenly heard numbers being called out, 150, 215, 03. When he looked, Alba was doing one-handed push-ups. She was at it again, totally in the zone, exercising first thing in the morning. He called out to her, Good morning. Morning, she replied. I'm making breakfast, so come eat in a bit, he said. Looking at her sweat-covered chest, he had to hold himself back, thinking, I shouldn't look. Just come down when it's ready, he added and moved on. At the dining table, she was gobbling down everything so fast that he couldn't understand it. He tried to tell her, You can take your time, you know. If I take too much time eating, I won't be able to react to enemies immediately, she said. I keep telling you, there are no enemies here, he replied, but she remained on guard. She picked up the hot soup straight from the pan and tried to chug it all down. The main character tried to warn her, It's very hot, but she didn't listen. She clearly felt the stinging burn. When he asked, Are you okay? She made a tough face and said, No problem. But he knew it was definitely hot. He came closer to her and said, Let's cool it down. She tried to say, Leave it, but he insisted, No way. Excuse me for a second and let me look. He came close to her face, looking at the burned spot. In his mind, he was doing what he used to do for his little sister when she burned her tongue drinking morning tea. You've burned yourself. I'll go get some water, so don't move, okay? Alba was amazed. She covered her mouth, unable to understand what she had just felt. She stammered to herself, What was that just now? After getting ready, she asked Carlo what she should do now. You can just relax, really, he said. She rejected the idea outright. No, that would be lazy. Carlo didn't think of it that way. Well then, how about the laundry? As they were doing the laundry, she ripped the clothes in one fell swoop. She was that strong. Looking at her, Carlo was scared and speechless. She apologized for ripping the clothes, but he said, "No, it's fine. Let's try something else, like washing the dishes." Things went exactly as expected. While washing the dishes, she broke plate after plate. This was her 15th. She was quite speechless. He said, "It's okay. More importantly, do you have a glass shard stuck in your hand?" She looked disappointed in herself, but then he suggested, "Then how about cleaning?" "I was good at cleaning back when I was an apprentice," she said, thinking this was her chance. While Alba was cleaning, Carlo opened the door and came inside, asking how things were going. He slipped on the water on the floor and fell to the ground. Looking at him, she asked, "Are you okay?" "Alba, you soaked the floor a bit," he said. She looked at him with a sharp eye, then fell into depression again, thinking, "I am so useless." She looked at her hand and saw a small cut with blood dripping from it. He noticed and said, "You really did have a shard stuck in your hand." "Thank you," she said. "Why isn't he scolding me? Instead of scolding me, you are worrying about me. I don't understand." He replied, "It's nothing out of the ordinary. That's just common sense, you know." She couldn't understand. He quickly went back to his room and brought something out. He told her he couldn't open it. It was probably an ink jar, or rather, his favorite jam. She popped it open in a second. "Wait, it's already open," he said. "It's a piece of cake." He thought to himself, "Even though I couldn't open it no matter what I did, she opened it in just a second." He thanked her, saying, "Thank you so much. Now I can use it again." Knowingly or unknowingly, as she looked at him eating, she had the largest smile on her face that she had ever had in her entire life. After that, she started taking the initiative to open jars for him.